This is, of course, the last week of October as we head into November. Hard to believe the colder days ahead of us, but not surprising. Federal government has made an announcement that I predicted would be the case back in June, that two carbon taxes in Atlantic Canada was unsustainable financially for most. You know, Canadians for Affordable Energy, which I've been running since 2019, wrote two reports. And both reports indicated that regions of the country where people had less money and were less well off could not afford such a huge financial albatross around their neck. It would also have the effect of driving up the cost of diesel and gasoline. So the federal Trudeau Liberal government decided to throw in the towel at least and provide a 3-year moratorium and then put a lot of your tax money towards heat pumps, which, as we know, do not work on the day in a country like Canada. They also suck up a lot of electricity. And of course, if you're concerned about electricity costs, this isn't going to help. But be as it may, it's now created a secondary problem, which is now that the federal government is going to have to consider long and hard why it's continuing to punish the rest of Canada with carbon taxes on propane and on natural gas. I suspect the days of this carbon tax are coming to a slow end. And like it or not, the decision by the Conservative Party of Canada to axe the tax is gaining strength across the country. And if the Liberals do not abandon not just the carbon taxes, but the whole market creation of net zero, which is the fanaticism driving up the price of everything in this country, destroying pipelines, driving up the cost of everything by diminishing the value of the Canadian dollar, well, they're going to be shown the door in 22 months or less. That aside, gasoline prices, let's get back to that. It's important because, of course, we've seen prices go up and down. Everything is really on a knife's edge, Julie, as far as prices are concerned this week. And they're really predicated on what happens, Israel's ground invasion of Gaza. Whether they do it or not, the fact is they've been holding back, and that has markets sort of just waiting and watching. What it's meant is, of course, a bit of a reprieve in gas prices. We've seen that in Atlantic Canada, where it dropped, as I had predicted, about 4 cents a litre for gasoline. Diesel remained about the same. Quebec and Ontario have seen prices move in and around the $1.55 range in Ontario and $1.67 to $1.68 in Montreal, a little higher in Quebec City, while the prairie provinces, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta have seen very little in the way of change, except for retailers moving their retail margins up or down. Again, prices seem to be flatlining, waiting to see what is going to happen. Same for British Columbia, although we've seen a bit of price dropping a little bit in places like Kelowna, Kamloops, and to a lesser extent, Prince George, maybe down 2 pennies. But I suspect that these prices, including the ones we've seen in Vancouver, they're now about $1.80 a litre, are going to start to rise a little bit next week. Again, it will all be triggered based on what happens in the Middle East with two global wars, wars that have the threat of bringing in a lot more strain and perhaps concern and crises. You're going to see the energy premium reflect that. Now, keep in mind the Canadian dollar, important for people to understand because all of our commodities are priced in U.S. terms, including the gasoline, diesel, propane, natural gas, and the like. Have seen the Canadian dollar has seen a drop of about 2 to 3% in the past week, a function of the fact that in order to continue to attract money into Canada, we have to see a weaker Canadian dollar. And without attracting any major investments, it means that there's been actually an additional price factor of about 2 cents a litre this week. That will continue to play as long as we remain at levels we haven't seen in well over a year. 138 pennies to buy a US dollar means that the cost of living is going to be significantly impacted and continue to hurt consumers. I say this, though, in the context that this time last year, diesel prices were 55 cents a litre higher. What that means in 2 weeks, when we talk about inflation, look for inflation in Canada to actually drop again, but this time more substantially by at least 1%. I'm expecting a 2.8% inflation rate come November 17th, which should take pressure off the idea that we have to raise interest rates. So they're all connected: energy, public policy, monetary policy, all connected to energy affordability. It's something the government's been playing around with. And unfortunately, we're starting to find out what that really means.